How does a superpower get started? Is it born from strength, inheriting an empire from the last great power? Or is it forged in fire by challenging the very idea of empire itself? The story of the United States isn't about becoming the next big empire. It's about proving that empires weren't invincible. It's a story that begins not with a crown, but with a rebellion. Let's rewind to 1776. The world map was a patchwork of empires, and the biggest, most dominant player on the board was Great Britain. The British Empire was a global titan. Its navy ruled the waves, its armies were disciplined and feared, and its coffers were filled with the wealth of continents. From the shores of India to the islands of the Caribbean, the Union Jack flew, a symbol of seemingly unstoppable power. To stand against Britain was, by all accounts, sheer madness. It was like a tiny rowboat trying to ram a battleship, yet a small collection of 13 colonies on the coast of North America decided to do just that. They didn't have a professional army to rival the British Redcoats. They didn't have a navy to challenge the Royal Navy's might. They didn't have a treasury overflowing with gold. So how on earth did they pull it off? How did this band of rebels, farmers, and merchants manage to defeat the most powerful empire on the planet? The answer is that they didn't play by the empire's rules. They understood a fundamental truth that empires often forget. Size can be a weakness. America's founders recognized that Britain's greatest strength, its sheer scale, was also its greatest vulnerability. An empire that stretches across the globe is an empire that is stretched thin. Its supply lines are long and fragile. Its communication is slow, and its attention is constantly divided. It's like a giant with limbs so long it couldn't feel what's happening at its fingertips. The American colonists became masters at exploiting this imperial overreach. They knew they couldn't win a traditional head-on war, so they didn't fight one. Instead, they embraced what we now call asymmetric warfare. Think of it as a chess game, where one side suddenly starts moving its pieces in ways the other side has never seen. The Continental Army, led by George Washington, would avoid large pitched battles where the British regulars excelled. Instead, they opted for hit-and-run tactics, ambushes, and strategic retreats. They would strike at British supply lines, harass their foraging parties, and then melt back into the countryside they knew so well. Militias, made up of local farmers and tradesmen, were crucial to this strategy. They might not have had the discipline of a redcoat, but they had something more valuable: local knowledge and a deep personal stake in the fight. They could appear out of nowhere, fire a few devastating volleys from behind trees and stone walls, and then vanish before the British could mount an effective response. This constant nagging pressure wore the British down. It was frustrating, demoralizing, and incredibly costly. Every soldier lost, every wagon of supplies captured, was a pinprick that, over time, threatened to bleed the empire dry. The war in America became a black hole for British manpower and money. But the American Revolution wasn't just won with clever tactics and guerrilla warfare. The most powerful weapon the colonists wielded wasn't a musket or a cannon. It was an idea so powerful, so revolutionary, that it threatened the very foundation of every empire on earth. That idea was liberty. The colonists weaponized ideology. They weren't just fighting against taxes. They were fighting for a new way of thinking about government and power. They drew on the ideas of Enlightenment thinkers and articulated a vision of a society based on principles that were radical for their time: liberty, representation, and the consent of the governed. The Declaration of Independence wasn't just a breakup letter to King George III, it was a mission statement for a new world. It declared that people had inalienable rights and that governments derived their just powers from the people they ruled. This was a direct assault on the concept of empire. Empires are built on hierarchy, on the idea that a monarch or a distant parliament has the right to rule over people without their consent. The American argument turned this completely on its head. This ideological weapon did two critical things. First, it galvanized the American population. It gave them a profound reason to fight, to endure hardship, and to sacrifice. They weren't just fighting for their homes, they were fighting for the future of freedom itself. This gave them a resilience that the British, fighting thousands of miles from home, simply couldn't match. Second, this weaponized ideology resonated far beyond American shores. It captured the imagination of people in Europe, including in Britain itself. Whigs in the British Parliament began to question the wisdom and morality of the war. More importantly, it helped win America its most crucial ally, France. The French monarchy wasn't exactly a champion of liberty, but they were the sworn rivals of Great Britain. They saw an opportunity to weaken their old enemy and jumped at the chance to support the American cause with money, troops, and a navy. The American idea of liberty provided the perfect justification for their intervention. This brings us to the core lesson of America's birth. Empires don't necessarily collapse because they've grown weak. Often, they collapse when they are at their peak of arrogance and expansion, when they are so stretched and so confident that they lose control of the narrative. They lose control of what people believe. The British Empire could control cities and win battles, but it couldn't control the idea of liberty spreading like wildfire through the minds of the colonists. They could occupy Philadelphia, but they couldn't occupy the hearts and minds of its people. America's first, and perhaps greatest victory, was psychological. It was the moment the world realized that empire was not the natural, inevitable state of human affairs. It proved that a determined group of people, armed with a powerful idea and a clever strategy, could successfully defy the mightiest power on earth. They showed that the emperor, for all his fine clothes and vast armies, could in fact have no clothes at all. This victory sent shockwaves across the globe. It inspired future revolutions in France, in Latin America, and around the world. The story of 1776 became a blueprint for others who dreamed of breaking free from imperial rule. The United States, in its very creation, served as a living, breathing testament to the idea that power ultimately resides not in armies or in treasuries, but in the consent and the belief of the people. It was a radical notion then, and it remains a powerful one today. The American experiment began not as a new empire, but as the beginning of the end for the old ones. Thank you for watching. If you found this look at history interesting, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories about the ideas that have shaped our world. See you next time.